Here, I rely on his explanation sometimes. Again, secondly, to refer to the caption on the front page of the Punch, or whether or not the federal government has said it will comply with the Supreme Court. There is nowhere here that's on the inside page,
Yes,
where anything of such was indicated. Rather, the Punch is reporting that the Supreme Court had on Wednesday ruled that the deadline should be suspended pending the determination of the case brought before it by the governors. Then the court has fixed February 15 to entertain the case. However, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami San, in a response to the suit late on Wednesday, among other things, said the Supreme Court lacked jurisdiction on the matter. It explains Kingsley's explanation. But however, on Thursday, yesterday,
yes,
a day before the deadline, commercial banks in the country and bank customers were thrown into confusion. You see, so there is no way from the first paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph, that the Punch indicated that the FD had said it will comply with
the on the paper there. I'll show you the paper later. Except if we are saying that. No. The Punch does not cover everything. Please,
I get what you are saying.
Yes, but it's on a paper, please.
Yeah,
I know what I'm talking about.
I get what you are saying. Yeah. What we are also doing here is to state the facts as they are.
Okay, good.
Yesterday, I provided a detailed explanation of the constitutional issues involved. And let me give you an example. The Guardian newspapers were proscribed in 1994 for 1 year, and along with other publications at Rutham House by the Sani Abacha military administration.
Yes.
They were reopened, the premises were reopened sometime in 1995. But the Guardian took the federal government to court, and the matter got to the Supreme Court. And when the Supreme Court, we were hearing that case in 1998, I was with Chief Rotimi Williams at the Supreme Court. In 1998, the Supreme Court had a 5-man panel to sit on the appeal. The Supreme Court took the briefs of argument, both parties, and I think Tochukwu Nwagbo for them was Solicitor General of the Federation and Permanent Secretary in the Federal Ministry of Justice. 5-man panel. After hearing the briefs of argument by the various two sides, the appellants and the respondents, the court rose. But subsequently, Chief Rotimi the court of first instance, those matters are also stated explicitly in the Constitution.
Yes.
So, and I said that the issues that the Supreme Court would take as a court of first instance are matters that are very clear. And that is, I don't want to get into the details of that. Is this a matter that is one of those issues?
Let's take this home. Please, let me make it clear that the benefit of the doubt I mentioned is you should know. So please understand it that way. But you just said something now. As a first instance, the High Court should listen to matters of legal tender. Now, the Supreme Court entertains something that seems to negate that. Doesn't that throw in a little confusion for those of us who
There is,
don't
of
know.
course, there is confusion.
That's the point.
And the confusion, is replicated by what
No,
the
no,
two
no,
of
there's no, hang on a second.
There's confusion
The
because
parties, there's no,
no, excuse me, sorry. The confusion I'm talking about now is on the side of the people, because now the people are even, more confused.
Are the people you are adjudicating on their behalf?
No, if you recall,
You're making laws on their behalf.
again, I explained yesterday,
Yes.
and I said the Federal High Court, on the basis of a suit filed by some political parties,
Yes.
had restrained the central bank from extending the deadline. And they went to that court, the litigants went to that court in the belief that that is the court that has jurisdiction over such matters.
Yes.
The litigants at the Supreme Court are different. The litigants at, let's not get into the details of that because I explained it. The litigants at the Supreme Court are different. And I also explained yesterday that on the basis of the hierarchy of courts,
Yes.
a federal high court is lower. If you follow our president and therefore stare decisis, it's inferior. So the Supreme Court when the Supreme Court then tries the matter and gives its judgment, then we would know what to say. It's a matter of
Kingsley, what should be the situation right now? How should Nigerians now, because some Nigerians don't know what to do.
You see, you're getting to the final point again.
Yeah, so what should they be doing?
With regard to what?
With regards to this Naira,
which
context.
Naira, are you still holding old Naira notes? Use yourself as an example.
No, Kingsley, don't use me as an example.
No, use yourself as an example.
No, don't use me. People have.
How much do you have? If you have if you have
10 p.m. yesterday, people still have
fantastic.
old Naira notes.
Today is
They even telling us that the Supreme Court has whatever. They don't know.
Today is the 10th of February. Nobody has said they will not accept the old Naira notes from you today.
A CBN.
Today, I said today is the 10th.
Okay, fine.
I note what I said.
Today
is the 10th of February.
Oh, they still have time. Okay.
Nobody has said they will not accept the old Naira notes from you. And by the way, if you went to the banks, you would find 50 Naira notes, 100 Naira notes, 20 Naira notes, 10 Naira notes, 5 Naira bank notes. Those ones have not been changed. And they remain legal tender. So what is all this hula baloo about? I don't know about what should people do.
My question is
for
those who still have those denominations that are supposed to, be exchanged, and for whose deadline ends today. If they still have it tomorrow, what should happen?
I am happy we are all journalists. A statement from whoever must come today.
Precisely.
Simple.
Making clarifications.
I don't want to reopen that. Let me cease. You recall we were discussing here on the desirability or otherwise of universities being shut for purposes of students to participate in the elections because they have registered in their home states or in locations different from their campuses. Good. The Federal Ministry of Education, through the National Universities Commission, has now issued a directive for all universities to suspend academic activities for 3 weeks, beginning from the 22nd of February until around about the 14th or so of March. And the reasons they said, for security and so on and so forth. I want to ask this question. Are they also shutting down colleges of education? Are they also shutting down polytechnics? Will they also be closing down the Nigerian law school? Because if the Nigerian law school is in session, to lose 3 weeks of academic work at the law school means a lot, and the country is not at war. So I made the argument on that occasion. Look, universities can take the option of saying, I have lecture-free days, 5 days or thereabout. Those who want to go home, let them go home, and then go to their places of registration to go and vote. NUC doesn't control polytechnics. NUC doesn't control colleges of education. But I read somewhere inter-university centers. Yes. I'm not quite sure. Inter-university centers will not refer to polytechnics or colleges of education. So what happens to colleges of education? What happens to polytechnics? What will happen to institutions like the law school? And some other trade institutions, and so on, including the Nigerian Defense Academy that runs degree programs.
Kingsley, we have to stop. Chukwudi, thank you. We've taken much time.
I hold it at this point.
So have a pleasant weekend, Kingsley.
Thank you so much. She's given me Kingsley. That's a good one.
Let's go for a short break. All right, welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service, and today we are going to be taking on the Accord Party, and we'll be having the presidential candidate with us in a short while. But first, let's listen to a background report on the party's activities and manifesto as put together by our correspondent Ekenem Dulwe.
It is just a matter of days now to the 2023 presidential elections, and Nigerians will be heading to the polls to choose who will be steering the affairs of the country in the next 4 years. 18 political parties are in the race, with 18 presidential candidates on the ballot. The presidential candidate of Accord Party, Professor Christopher Imomalen, will be slugging it out with the rest of the candidates. At 39 years, he is considered to be the youngest, giving representation to the youth population. At a time when Nigerians are clamoring for youth inclusivity in political positions, youths represent just about 26.8% for all elective positions in the 2023 elections. In what appears to be a late start, the Accord Party inaugurated its presidential campaign council on the 29th of January, with barely 1 month to the election. What has been going on in the Accord Party presidential campaign? What does it feel like to be the youngest on the presidential ticket? What does Accord Party have in store for Nigerians? These and more answers shall be provided by hierarchy of the Accord Party on this edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Ekenem Dulwe, for that background report. Joining us at the studios now to discuss the presidential campaign of the Accord Party is Professor Christopher Imomalen, who is the presidential candidate of the party. We're glad to have you this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Also here with us in the studios is the running mate to Professor Imomalen, and that's Bala Bello Maru. Bala Bello Maru, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you for hosting us.
Okay. All right, so we'll begin with the presidential candidate. How has it been on the hustings?
It's been a very fruitful and eventful process, you know, having to be part of the presidential candidates for this year's election. I think it's been a very eventful process, you know. Being a young candidate and being a new entrance in political environment, you know, the way many Nigerians who also by themselves have clamored for a newer idea, a fresh air. So I think what we have seen so far is a very good one. The reception has been very, very good. And I think for us, we are very hopeful of the outcome of the election. We've traversed many parts of the country. We've done so much that we can do as individuals and as parties, and we are hopeful. We believe in God, yeah.
Okay, I like the last one. You believe in God, even though politics takes a lot more, you know, a lot more than belief to win. But let's look at your motivating, you know, drive. At 39, mm-hmm. I'm wondering, what was on your mind when you dared to, you know, tread this political path that even lions, you know, refuse to go through?
You know, it's we all know that the basic solution to our challenges in Nigeria today is to have one who is fresh, who have fresh ideas. When an organization is faced with recurrent challenges, I'm telling you, what you must do at that point is to purge the organization. Bring men who have new ideas, who have fresh ideas to drive the organization. That's what we represent in Accord. We represent the alternative. We represent that fresh ideas. And if you have gone through my history, you have gone through what I've been doing, you will see that even as a young person, I have gotten to the apex of academic career. I'm a professor. I own 3 universities, probably the only Nigerians who have achieved that. I've achieved at least the best I can.
You own 3 universities?
Yes, you've checked it. And if you look at what we've done privately, we've been so impactful in education. For the past 10, 12 years, we've been chunking out scholarship to see how Nigerians can afford education at a subsidized rate or scholarship. I'm probably the only candidate privately who had impacted value when it comes to education to Nigerians outside politics, setting up scholarship centers all across Nigeria. We've even done beyond Nigeria. We've gone to Ghana, Togo, Benin Republic, Sierra Leone, because of my belief that education remains one of the driving force to national birth and discovery. So this passion and many more, seeing that Nigeria is a very blessed country, but we need the right leadership. And there are so many people out there who actually have so much to offer. But because of this mindset that, politics is dirty, you can't go into politics without being stained, the politics can be killed, many ideas that doesn't fly anywhere. We must, that is what I'm doing, challenging the Nigerian youth. We have so many Nigerians who are doing so well in Nigeria and in diaspora, who we believe can take Nigeria out of the political challenges that we have, economic challenge rather. So we represent that, and that is one of the major driving forces.
Kingsley, a lot of us, me inclusive, sometimes get confused about our conception of change, our conception of leadership. Why do we always think that, being at the top, being the president, is the height of leadership, or that's the only place you can start to change things? I'm wondering why you didn't consider even starting off, maybe at the National Assembly. That will give you the legal power to be able to effect laws, laws that will trigger off the kind of transformation that you talk about, especially as it affects education.
I don't know which point you're coming from. We've had younger person who had become head of state in Nigeria. We've had head of
that was during military era.
Yes, we've had ministers who are far younger. We've had president in other countries.
And the environment there was quite different.
No, it's only Nigeria. I've seen youths, when you come out to aspire for presidency, say, you are young. We've gone too long. We are in a country where many persons don't even believe in themselves. Many people who doubt because they don't believe they by themselves can achieve it. They are reflecting their self-doubt, not me. They are reflecting their reality, not my reality. We all have what we see, we look differently. So the issue now is this. Nigeria have an endemic problem, which I believe can be solved by having the right president. I'm telling you, we need to quickly drive Nigeria to prosperity. We need to quickly create employment. We need to quickly bring out 133 million Nigerians in poverty. It's a job that must be quickly done. In 2050, Nigeria will become the third largest population in the world. We probably become a 1 billion population. These are projections. What are we doing? If we don't look at who becomes our president in the next election, if we are not careful, what we have now might just be, when we look back to today, we might say, we are actually enjoying, when we think we are actually in a problem. Because what we might have in next coming years, I don't pray that happens. So that is very key. We can do it. We've check my track record. Maybe when you check, you will know that we have young Nigerians who have the capacity to drive Nigeria. And that is the job of our generation. I believe that it's a mandate of our generation to change the trajectory for Nigeria. We've seen that happen everywhere in other countries, and it can happen. And if you look at Nigeria, for example, we have people who have made Nigeria proud. Recently, a young Nigeria won Grammy. Young. Those who are putting the limelight of Nigeria on global record are young Nigeria. If we can believe that, if we can start putting ourselves into politics, I believe we can change the narrative.
I think the basis of the last question that my colleague posed was to relate it to the usual saying about a house, that you don't start building a house from the roof, you begin from the foundation. And I think that was the basis for that. But you've said, check out my track record, find out who I am. Tell our viewers who you are.
Okay, my name is Professor Christopher Emumolen. I'm 39. I'm from Edo State, Isha Ekpoma. I had my first degree at University of Benin, Mechanical Engineering. I had my master's in University of Lagos before working with as oil and gas. I later became the president onshore offshore oil and gas professionals in Nigeria. I'd work as the West African Secretary General to West African Renewable Sustainable Energy Board. It's a commission set up by the United Nations. I was the president, I'm still the president of Unique Foundation, it's an NGO that has supported a lot of Nigerians privately. I am probably one of the few Nigerians whose name is listed in the World Book of Greatness in UK, and that is because of the huge philanthropic work we've been doing privately. I'm also a member of the World Presidential Civility Club in the US and Canada. It's a commission that provides guidance and advice to world presidents. I've been doing that. I have my PhD from the University of International Technology and Management in Lomé, Togo. And by the grace of God, we started...
In which field?
In engineering research. Yes, and I have my second PhD in education management. So, and my love for education has for long prompted us to looking at education, oil and gas, and some other fields. And that is what we've been doing privately. How do we provide education, affordable, accessible, and quality for Africans? Our initial mandate was basically for the black race. How do we emancipate the black race with knowledge so that we can begin in the next century to measure up with our counterparts all over the world? That passion has driven us for many years to seeing how we can support government, how we can work privately, have positioned myself in a way that had provided advice to even to Nigerian government on educational matters. How Nigerians are immigrating out of this country to get educated in far near countries because of the challenge we have. If we don't fix a sector that would develop the mind of Nigeria, that would equip our human resources, which I believe is the most vital resources that we have, beyond, yes, verifying the mineral resources and all what we are blessed with. The human that controls every resources is very key. That means that we must invest hugely and we must be deliberate about how we build our Nigerians, how we transform and reform the value system of Nigeria. Very key for us.
In which field are you a professor?
Engineering research.
Which institution conferred the professorship on you?
University of Technology and Management in Lomé, Togo.
Okay.
Okay, I just before we bring it, I know you're the vice presidential candidate of the party, Bala Bello Maru is also here. But just before we bring him into the conversation, I would like to also understand Professor Imomolen's perspective on leadership, because some opinion see leadership as not from the perspective that we understand, but leadership is a whole concept that is now contested. But for you, what does leadership mean, and who should drive leadership?
For me, personally, I feel leadership by itself is service to the people. Leadership is it's a privilege that is given to man to develop yourself first and to give what you have in you in the development of humanity. Anything other than that is not leadership. Leadership by itself is servanthood, is making sure that you lead by example and you serve the people. Leadership is service to God. Leadership is service to mankind. Leadership is ensuring that we impact the world using the innate capacity we have in us to make the world a better place. Because we all as human, we have one objective, even in the Bible and in the Holy Quran, to make sure that the gift that is in us, just like the man in the Bible who has talents, and at the end he was asked, what have you used your talent for? The ability to transform what you have in you in developing the world is your service to ensuring that you leave the world a better place.
Okay, thank you very much, Imomolen, for your response. Let's bring in now the vice presidential candidate of Accord Party, that is Bala Bello Maru. Bala Bello Maru, tell our viewers, why did you decide to join this ticket?
Thank you. I decided to support him by being his vice presidential candidate because after a series of discussions with him, I realized that he has the capacity to govern Nigeria and to give Nigeria what it deserves, to transform into the kind of nation that it is supposed to be. I realized that, in fact, his university in Togo, Global Wealth University, was the one that gave scholarship to an indigene of my local government.
Which is?
Maru local government.
Where
An
is that?
indigene
Where is that? Tell our
in
viewers.
Zamfara State.
Okay.
An indigene of my ward is from my polling unit. He graduated this year. So I realized that, and he went there on scholarship. And he was the one who gave him the scholarship. I didn't know until I met him. And I didn't, in fact, I have never told him this. This is the first time I'm revealing this information. I'm also encouraged by the fact that Nigeria needs a young, intelligent leader who has the capacity to govern Nigeria. In fact, the president of France became president in 2017 at the age of 40. And that is a civilized country. He was born in 1977. He became the president of France in 2017. And that was age 40.
He also had some experiences, you know, both legislative and other executive experiences before he became.
Experience matters.
No, I just said you can also add that.
Yes, yes. Thank you. So I realized that he has interest in developing humanity in his own private capacity. So he has empowered a lot of Nigerians and a lot of young men and women, even outside Nigeria. He also, I realized that he developed a trading platform that assists a lot of people that he doesn't even know. They just key in and they are matched as traders, buyers or sellers. So he has helped to empower a lot of people. So because of these factors, I realized that I am supposed to encourage him to contest in order to give to Nigerians in public capacity what he was able to give Nigerians in his private capacity. So I am supporting him because of the personal merit I have discovered in him.
Okay, thank you very much, Maro. By the presidential candidate's own personal admission, he's a rookie in politics. Are you also a greenhorn in politics?
Well, I was born on the 6th of September 1962. I was elected as a member of the House of Assembly during Abuja regime, the transition program that was truncated after his death. I was the state secretary of the People's Democratic Party throughout the Obasanjo regime. I have served as special assistant to two ministers, Minister of State Foreign Affairs during the Yar'Adua regime, Minister of State Works during the Jonathan administration, and my last assignment was secretary to the government of Zamfara State. I contested as governorship candidate of Akot in 2019, and I was third in the election.
You definitely are a suitable candidate.
It's not a rookie. That's
I was a member
No.
of so many boards,
Yes.
including Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria during the Eddie Iro administration when he was the managing director. And
All right, thank you, thank you, and we're pleased to know that you provide a very good backup, you know, for the presidential candidate. But let's talk about capacities, because all I hear is he has capacity, he has capacity, yes. He has capacity, and I'm glad going through, you know, the previous interviews we've had, you know, with other journalists. I've heard you or read you talk about areas, you know, your areas of focus, and you touched two critical areas, that excites me: border control and education. Now, first of all, your universities are not here. You have invested in university education outside of this country. That's one. I'd like you to speak to that, why you took that decision. And then secondly, you talked about the sponsorship you have given out. When you do become the president of this country, you're not going to be given private scholarships. So how do you intend to get the funding, which is a critical aspect, of education priorities?
Okay, thank you so much for that. I truly appreciate. And first, I have done all the little I've done because of passion and value, and again because of my upbringing. I lost my father at the age of 12, and it was difficult for an African child to survive having had that experience. So whatever I'm doing now, it's just a passion to see that what I've gone through, at least the youth do not also go through same, at least in my own little capacity. So that is key. So the issue of education and why we have not set up similar university in Nigeria. We actually started setting up a university in Nigeria before we started setting up university in other parts of the world.
Africa.
Yes. But the bureaucracy in setting up a university, the political, what's it called? Even when you have the land, the documents, in Nigeria, for you to have a university, it must be ascended by the president. Actually, there must be a federal executive meeting seated, and it must be signed. I personally do not think it should be that, because education is a necessity to Nigeria, and we do not make a sector that is needed for development of the nation in such a manner. Nigeria is the only country where accreditation of university is done by having 100 hectares of land. In other parts of the world, university accredited based on content, curriculum, and quality of lecturers and the rest of them. But Nigeria, one factor is 100 hectares of land. And that by itself makes it very difficult for private sector engagement in that sector. And I've always said this. Those are part of the things we are going to look at. That is why we easily have issues in ASU. When ASU go on strike, you see everywhere is we must begin to have a friendly business environment in education, in power, and every other sector for investors who know how to run this business to run. Why government regulates and ensure that standard is met. That is how it's being run every part of the world. And I believe that by itself will drive our educational system. I have a lot of passion for education. I haven't spent so much of my years in the educational sector. I understand what are the challenges, both in government and in private.
How would you address the issue of funding? It's a critical challenge in our educational system. It is the reason why ASU is ever going on strike. It's the reason why students, are forever losing their, several academic years. It's the reason why we have, unemployable, graduates. It's the reason for so many decays in the educational sector. How do you hope to do that? The federal government at the moment is unable to carry the financial burden.
Okay, let me explain. I think that is not just the issue with the problem we have in education. I think corruption by itself has eaten deep into every sector of our country. There are fundings in the education. We have about 7.2% budget for education. These funds are released. But because we do not have a proper system to checkmate, monitor, implement, review the works that is being done. So you end up seeing that most of these funds that are allocated do not hit the ground and they do not do what it's meant to do. That is key. Number two is the value system. We need leaders in that sector who has value, who understand the impact of educating Nigerians as it links to Nigeria's development. It's very key. If you don't have a value for a thing, you would not place priority on it. That is very important for us. So we need leaders who understand this. Education is a priority, it's mind-building. And when you talk about education, it's not just the formal education alone. We're talking about the non-formal and the informal education. We must look at what are Nigerians exposed to. In other countries like Dubai, there are regulations even in what they watch on the internet. Because education is about what you become eventually. How you formed Because when that happens, then you can actually look at your local problems and solve. So there's a lot of problems. For example, the issue of the ASU. We talk about the IPPS and the UTAS platform of payments. There have been untransparency according to them in the payment system. They are not paid. Sometimes their payment have been deducted on without knowing what's up. So that is one of the major issues. And secondly, the agreement they had with the previous administration. How do you implement this? For me, education cannot be too expensive to implement. If you believe education is expensive, then you try ignorance. That is why eventually you produce quack graduates. You produce those who cannot actually fix our problem.
You have a funding model.
Number one, not funding model. This is it. If you look at our manifesto, we have so many things we have said we are going to do. One of the things we said is, one, to ensure that we digitalize the Nigerian system, to create a system. See, Nigeria's revenue by itself is, if properly channeled, we have so much that we generate in Nigeria that if properly channeled, if a system is created, believe me, so many loopholes we have would have been covered and we'll be sure that what we are generating by itself is going directly into the government coffers. I know the present administration have tried a lot to, like the issue of the harmonization of the funds that we have, and it's good, but there's still a lot to be done to ensure that all our remittances goes to the coffers of the government.
Thank you very much, presidential candidate of Accord Party. Let's bring in again your running mate, Bello Maru. He's talked about the tertiary level and only one aspect of the tertiary level, namely universities. But we know that we also have a crisis of out-of-school children. And some of the latest estimates indicate that they're probably close to 20 million. Is this part of the priority of our Accord Party? And if so, how does it hope to tackle it?
Thank you. It's part of our priority to ensure that education is as much as possible free and is universal right from the primary school level. And one of the ways we feel as Accord, like you said, is to ensure that, one, there is transparency in all revenue collection as well as revenue distribution. And like the universal basic education, which is actually the body in charge of partnership between the federal government and the state governments, we'll make sure that all disbursements and expenditure on primary school education is done in such a way that all children at the primary school age in every state goes to school. The system will be changed by Accord in terms of monitoring, because from my experience, most of the monitoring and evaluation is left in the hand of the state governments. The federal government only makes sure that there is due process in the expenditure. But in terms of monitoring and evaluation, federal government does not play significant role. So under Accord government, we'll make sure that monitoring and evaluation is given so much priority at the local level. And Accord...
So the federal government will then be running the local governments and states?
No. If, as it is, federal government is a contributor to the primary education, it must also make sure that what it contributes reaches the purpose, or serves the purpose for which the contribution was made. This is so it will be a joint monitoring and evaluation done in a more serious and transparent manner.
How does that tackle the issue of out-of-school children?
Yes, like I said, the main problem of out-of-school children is, one, the enrollment. The enrollment. And now at the primary school level, you realize that some of the children don't attend primary schools. Even though the federal government has a feeding program to motivate the children to go to school, because the federal government serve breakfast for primary schools, and this is meant to encourage the children to go to school. Under an Accord administration, like I said, we'll make sure that this service is actually achieve the result it is meant to achieve. Because under the present system, what is just done is the states nominate the those that are to feed the children and then pay them, and that is all. But it is not involved in the monitoring and evaluation of how those children receive the meals and what actually is happening in these schools. And one problem that we also have that is militating against the enrollment of children at the primary school level is the problem of insecurity, which once an Accord administration is sworn into office, we will make sure that we improve the security in every nook and corner of this country, so that all internet displaced persons will go back to their villages and the schools will function effectively and efficiently. But as it is now, most of the out-of-school children don't enroll because their parents are displaced persons. They are also displaced. So you cannot have high level of school enrollment in such areas where families, whole families are turned into displaced families. So this is what Accord intends to do in order to ensure that we improve the level of enrollment at this primary school level, as well as the quality of the education which they receive. So it's not just enough to fund, but you must also see how the fund is actually used.
I was just wondering, Claire, because it's referenced insecurity now as one of the factors in the diminishing number of pupils who ordinarily would have been in school, and therefore swelling the ranks of out-of-school children. Security. You are from Zamfara State. Has the Accord Party been able to campaign in Zamfara? And if you did, what was the experience like?
Yes. We campaign in Zamfara. In fact, our governorship candidate is there campaigning, as we are here doing it all across the country. And one of the important areas we are giving priority is the contribution of Accord, what Accord will the contribution it will make to ensure that we have better security, not only in Zamfara State, but in Nigeria as a whole. And what I want us to understand is that Accord, as central government, will play a greater role in ensuring security all across Nigeria, because security is the function, basic function of government. And in Nigeria, it is the duty of the federal government to provide security. Because from my experience, there are a lot of limitations which state governments face in providing security. There is a limitation of institutional capacity. There is a limitation in constitutional authority. Because no state governor, for example, is permitted by law to permit any indigenous of a state to possess arms. That is the sole responsibility of the federal government agency. So where a state governor cannot permit any indigenous of a state to legally acquire arms, it limits the capacity of that authority at the state level to ensure security. And also institutional capacity. Our institutions at the state level are not like the federal institutions. Civil defense, police, the army are all under the control of the federal government. So in terms of experience, in terms of training, the state governments are limited. Also in terms of funding, they do not have the sufficient funds.
So what will you then do if
so as a central government, yes, like she mentioned, border control, sea, air, and land, is one of our priorities. And like he said, part of what we intend to do as ACORD government at the federal level is to ensure that we have an effective and comprehensive digital transformation in such a way that all our borders, land, sea, and air, are under control. And we will make sure that there is the full integration of known and seen identities, so that we will be able to monitor effectively Nigerians as they use our broadband as well as internet services.
Okay, Vice Presidential Candidate of the ACORD Party, thank you, Bello Maru. Thank you very much for the points that you have noted. And maybe the presidential candidate would, elaborate further. Now you're talking about policing the borders, which is, like I said, an area that got me really interested. And I want to believe that you got to Togo on the platform of the free movement protocol. That, of course, that was the leverage. You leveraged the free movement protocol, and that's why you are in Togo now and doing business. So now, if you're going to, tingle with border control, you would also have to look at, that provision of the ECOWAS treaty. I'm sure you agree. So I would like to know what you intend to do with that. That's one. And then secondly, I would also like to know how you intend to, police the seas, how you intend to handle the issue of piracy, especially on our Gulf, the Gulf of Guinea. The Gulf of Guinea at the moment, we've made tremendous success with the instrument, of course, that the federal government, introduced, the Deep Blue project. There's been a reduction in piracy. But I also like to know if you are in agreement with some of those policies. If you're going to retain them, if you do become president, are you going to retain some of those policies, some of those programs, or what do you intend to do differently?
Okay, thank you. Quickly, I will add to just complement what you have said about security, and to also answer your question. First, I have not just theoretically observed what is happening in our borderline, but I've visited many of the borders. And as you know, I'm not just in Togo, I'm in Ghana, Sierra Leone, even almost all the states in Nigeria. I have business interest. So that has given me a first-hand information of what is happening. And I can tell you with an amazing word that currently we have about 1,400 illegal routes into Nigeria unmanned. And any nation that has such a porous border can never experience, especially when you are not in good terms with your neighbor. You cannot have a peaceful country, just like a man who has a building that is not fenced and there are issues, So we must deliberately start ensuring that our border lines are guided. We must ensure that we start building back our wall to have a border because of our national sovereignty as a country. Large percentage of the reasons why we have insecurity in Nigeria today is the illegal movements from the
influx of illegal migrants.
Yes, so you see small and light arms being moved through camels, through cattle, through tankers, through bikes into the country. And when such happens, believe me, you might not be able to manage. So we are going to, as a ACORD party and our administration, we are going to pay so much attention to border control. We'll begin to look at security from the artificial intelligence point of view. It's not just enough because for too long as a country, we've not invested hugely in technology, in fighting security across board. It's very key. The world today have a security methodology which is using more of the artificial intelligence. For example, let's talk about the issue of satellites. We have not done so much in our satellite control. If you talk to the DGs of, for example, or agencies that are in charge, they will tell you the same. If you cannot monitor the activity of your people, then you cannot have intelligence of crime before crimes happen. Two things happen before crime happen. One is the desire to commit crime. Second is the opportunity to commit crime. It's God that stops a man who desires to commit crime, not to desire. But it's the role of government to ensure that the opportunity for crime to happen is not there. And that must be done through strict monitoring, application of AIs, robotics, and serious artificial intelligence in security. We are going to invest hugely in that. And most importantly, is training and motivation of security professionals. It's very key. In security management, you do not even engage a security personnel that will not be motivated. Once a security personnel is not motivated, believe me, there is high tendency that you're going to work for the very criminal that is meant to protect you against. So if you look at what is happening at security architecture, the truth is there is some level or high level of compromise in the security architecture. And that comes from the fact that many of our security professionals are not properly motivated. We are going to look at that seriously. Countries that have great security arrangements, you got to see how they have seriously planned, they are seriously working on motivation of their security personnel. Even privately, if you have a security person and is hungry, believe me, your life is at risk. So we must look at that motivation. Then we must look at the training again. We have new threats. We have new threats in our security management in Nigeria. Nigerian security agencies must be trained to make sure that they have what it takes to curb and ensure that we have. And again, you cannot fight security if, for example, the economic hardship has not been worked on. The major cause of our insecurity in Nigeria is the high level of economic hardship.
What do you think about border closure?
No, border closure, you can only close border to avoid movement of illegal movement or illegal equipment or harm. But it must be open for business and trade. Because remember, we already have an agreement, ECOWAS agreement and treaty, to ensure that there is free trade between those countries. I do not agree to illegal as a closure of border against business transactions, because that by itself affects Nigerians in diaspora. We are not just thinking about Nigeria and Nigeria alone. We are thinking about Nigeria. Let me tell you, in Benin Republic, we have about 7 million Nigerian descendants in Benin Republic. In Togo, we have about 1 million Nigerian descendants in Togo, and many Nigerians who are in Togo doing business. You know, when I was going abroad to talk to Nigerians, I focused on Nigerians in West Africa. Not because I was looking at, because I know we have more Nigerians in our borderline than Nigerians in other countries, and I spoke to them. So we must look at our action and effect, cause and effect of every policy we make, not just to the development of Nigeria alone, but to all Nigerians in those countries. We saw those sanctions that Nigerians in Ghana were asked to pay $1 million for permits for business. These were counter effects of the policies that, for us, we believe that closing the border must be done in the interest of Nigeria.
How have you been able to communicate all that you have talked to us, all that you're saying to us? Because you're speaking to us and we understand what you're saying. But for those out there, the potential voters, how have you been able to, contextualize all that you have said now, and to them, have they been able to assimilate all this, and do they understand what really you intend to do?
The minds of Nigerians are quite different, because it comes with the kind of educational level and how exposed we are. And we have done our best using the channels that are available to talk to Nigerians. We've been on one-on-one discussion. We're having our rallies in various platforms. We have our structures as party. We've communicated through our chairmen, through other candidates all over Nigeria. And if you know Accord as a party is not winning an election. Is not just about the presidential candidate. It's a collective work. And if you look at states like Oyo State, states like Rivers State, Zamfara State, Benue, we have strong, about 10 states, we have strong members of Accord contesting also there, who are also pushing our manifestos to the people, who are also talking to them in their local dialect, who are making them understand that this is what Accord stands for and this is what we represent. And we are doing that, I can tell you.
Okay, but thank you. We'll come again to the issue you were talking about, as according to you, Nigerians who are abroad in Benin Republic and Togo, what their disposition is to border closure and intra-ECOWAS trade. But I want to bring in again your running mate, Bello Maro. What is the current standing of Accord Party? You are in existence because you have satisfied the constitutional requirement for existence. What is your standing? Do you have any governor? Do you have any members of the National Assembly or members of the State House of Assembly, councillors or chairmen? What is the distribution?
Yes. Actually, we do not have elected members as at now, but we are very hopeful that in this election there is going to be serious change, because our party is getting a lot of support all over the country. So we believe that we will perform very well in the 2023 election. However, we know that as a political party that is one of the 18 political parties, we are growing day by day, maybe from the rating. We are about the 4th or 5th political party now in terms of our ability to interact with voters all over the country. So we believe that we will perform very well in the 2020 election.
Yes.
Maybe you didn't get. We have Federal House of Assembly members, Shino Pella, in all your states. I think maybe
That's the House of Representatives.
Yes, House of Representatives. Yeah, and we, like he had said also, just to add to what he had said, if you look at our statistics in some states, which if maybe time permits, we can start analyzing with you, so you get to know that Accord will do very well in this election.
Sorry, quickly, just quickly also before we take a short break, if you are in 10 states, or more, as you say, you have presence in those states, and even if you are able to secure all the votes in those states, which is not possible, are you likely? Do you think you're likely to meet the requirements, to win a presidential election, the two-thirds requirement of the postcard?
Every state, every party have its stronghold. I only mentioned 10 states because it doesn't mean that we are not going to get votes from other states.
I said even if you get all the votes in the 10th.
Yeah. So, and again, from what we have been doing, I can tell you that, yes, you can say that, a particular party tend to have the sympathy of the youth, but we are also working so hard to also get a large chunk of vote from the youth, from the students. And I was so pleased when we got the news that all universities should go back home and vote. That is a plus to us, because I'm one candidate I've interacted more with students in the past. The National Union of Students have been there, and I also see that constituency as a constituency to get a lot of votes.
All right.
You were not in the studios with us. I said the universities have been asked to suspend academic activities for 3 weeks because of the elections. No directive of that nature has been issued to polytechnics. No directive of such nature has also been issued to colleges of education. No, to other institutions, that's to say post-secondary institutions. NTA is one, for instance. NTA offers degree programs, Nigerian Law School, which is which comes up after your LLB. So, what are you going to canvass for those institutions as well to be shot?
Yes. Sorry, Kingsley, please, just hold.
I just want
take a shot.
I'll just throw it out here because he says he's quite excited that the universities will be closed for 3 weeks for voting.
Let's get a short break, please.
Now. All right, you are welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We still have in our studios the presidential candidate of Accord Party, along with his running mate for the February 25th presidential election. Gentlemen, the issue I was raising before we went on that short break about closure of institutions, it was just by the way, and it wasn't to elicit any response from you. But you've been in the oil and gas sector. And in recent years, there's been the focus on energy transition.
Yeah.
What is the position of your party with regard to energy transition and in general the management of the oil and gas sector in our country?
Okay. Energy transition, for us, we also hold it in high esteem as a party because we know that energy drives a lot of activities in the world today, and no country can survive without having sufficient capacity in energy. However, the global world is now looking at how safe we generate electricity, especially tied to the issue of climate change, so that countries can have the activities run via generation of activity, energy without having so much impact, negative impact on our ozone layer depletion, our greenhouse effect, and climate change in general. So we believe in that mandate. We believe in that matriarch of ensuring that we have a smooth energy transition process. We look at other alternative form of energy. Because Nigeria by today, we have huge shortage in our energy supply. Let's look at what we are blessed with, the crude oil by itself. We are a country that is blessed with crude oil, yet we are unable to service Nigeria with enough PMS, with enough DPK, with enough AGO, which are needed. And that is because of the concept of subsidy. You know, the subsidy arrangement by itself has become an Among Us project that has affected all the machineries that is needed to convert our crude oil into finished products. You know, we have refinery in Element refinery, petrochemical refinery. We have the Warri refinery. We have the Kaduna refinery. I can tell you without mincing words that none of this refinery is working up to optimal operation. Because we are lazy now, we believe that once we bring in finished products, then we get money to equalize the amount through subsidy. And there's a lot that is happening. Our government is holding this position. One, we are going to open more access to other energy utility forms like the wind energy, the solar energy, which of course other part of the world. And secondly, we are going to eradicate or remove the subsidy. And that can be done only when we are sure that we are able to produce sufficiently locally the amount of oil that we need for Nigerians. And like I said, beyond just revitalizing our refineries, we must also be looking at an aggressive means of ensuring that the modular refinery concept is encouraged, the licenses are reduced and investors are brought in. And thirdly, we must also begin to do something that the federal government is not doing. We need to begin to look at small-scale refinery. In other countries, for example, if an activity emanates out of a process of crime, you can begin to look at those activities in the creek. If you go down to the creek, you see the guys in the creek producing crude oil into blue gas, diesel. What is an illegal operation? Federal government. But for what we are looking at is, if our Nigerians can produce a local refinery that can produce, why can't we look at this operation? Begin to look at how we can also step down from a modular refinery license to small-scale refinery. Because by the time Nigeria refines its own crude in Nigeria, then there won't be need for the subsidy by itself. So we must begin to engineer, apart from just relying on Dangote refinery. Dangote refinery is good, it's a good private business initiative. We are very happy with that, but we need more hands to join. I and the Accord administration will ensure that we look at what these boys are doing, we look at the technology that is behind the local refinery, we begin to control it, we begin to give licenses, and we begin to ensure that refining is done in an environmental friendly way, just because to ensure that Nigerians have it. Look at what we are buying fuel today. Look at the price of diesel. Let me just tell you, do you know why diesel today is sold at about 800 naira? Because 70% of the diesel we consume in Nigeria are produced illegally from the creek. So once you fight those guys, there will be diesel unavailability, and the fuel that is very limited available will shoot up. So we are in a country whereby we are going to fight these things, but it must be fought in a way that it doesn't kill the economy.
That's what I wanted to ask you.
And it doesn't, about small-scale refiners kill the environment.
No, that is what I said we are going to work on that technology and make it environmental friendly.
Fine. I like you, the refineries. I'm not even sure if they are working, what more optimal at optimal level. You talked about revitalizing them. I want you to give us a clearer understanding of what you mean by that, revitalizing them, in what sense and in what context. And you also talked about opening up the power sector. How do you intend to open up the power sector? Is it via privatization? And if privatization, what is it you want to do? How do you want to, follow it up that has not been done?
Okay, it's a more transparent arrangement. I believe that the challenge with the power sector, it's basically, to me, a policy challenge. We need to begin to open up that sector to allow private investors come in, not just at the distribution level, even at the generation level. As it is today, government by itself controls massively the generation of power, especially in a country that have not been able to produce power for its people. We are in a country where the optimum megawatt we have produced about 6,000 or so. Last year we had our national grid collapse totally about 4 or 5 or more times, and we had total darkness in Nigeria.
So you are going to put more effort in generation aspect?
More power, yes. We need 100,000 megawatts of power to service the 45 million households we have in Nigeria. We must produce, and the only way is to invite more investors, those who know how to do the business. Encourage them. The power sector is highly monopolized, and you must open it up. You do not monopolize a sector that is hinged on national development.
Do you also realize that even what we are generating now, the under 4 point something, yes, we are not even consuming everything, and that's because there's a gap in the other sectors of other tiers of power. For instance, transmission and distribution infrastructure. Are you also going to, while you are concentrating opening up the generation aspect, are you also looking at shoring up, that gap? Yes.
Yeah, of course, because when you generate too much that you can transmit, that is where the collapse happens. But by the time you open it up, okay, look at the telecommunication sector, for example. It was a policy issue. It was opened up to private sector. And by private sector themselves, they started drawing up their transmission. They started laying fiber optics by themselves. It's just government to create an enabling environment. You see, private sector will run it. We must begin to run a private sector-driven economy, even in the power sector itself. Once you do that, you have regional power generation. You allow it. For me, I believe, and one of the things we're going to do, government needs to start taking off its hand from business. Create more environment for private sector to begin to deliver jobs and begin to deliver Nigeria. That is how every part of the world works. Go to the New York, go to UK, go to Paris, go to Hong Kong. We must allow that to happen. So that is what we are going to do. We are going to look at the policies. We are going to open up that sector. We are going to allow there are persons who want to generate power not through the hydropower, the dam system. We have investors who have what's it called, wind based on locations. We have those who want to generate power through solar. In massive, what you just need to do is to guarantee their investment and give them that environment needed.
Okay, Bello Maru, what is Accord Party's agenda for food security?
Thank you. Like we said, as the agriculture sector is now, it is being threatened by a number of factors. Insecurity is one of them. Funding is one of them. So what we intend to do as Accord government, once voted into power, like I said before, I keep going around the insecurity because as it is now, the agricultural sector contributes about 23% of Nigeria's GDP. So it's a very important sector for Nigeria, and it has much capacity that has not been utilized. So once the security situation improves, the contribution of that sector will also greatly improve, because even the capacity of our peasant farmers is not being utilized at optimum level, not to talk of mechanized farming. So an Accord administration intends to improve security in our hinterland and also try to bring in private investment in that sector. The current National Livestock Development Plan, which has suffered some hitches here and there, is going to be revitalized by an Accord administration once voted into power. We will try to address the conflicting issues around Rugga and ranching. The cattle, that's herders, farmers clash. So we'll try to, as much as possible, to address all these conflicts in order to see that we improve agricultural production in Nigeria such that agriculture contributes more, not necessarily in terms of percentage, but in terms of the real GDP content. So it might not be 23% because as an Accord administration, we intend to see that Nigerians get employment not only in the agriculture sector, but also in the manufacturing sector. So it's not necessarily in terms of percentage. The percentage, because we want to improve the percentage of the manufacturing sector from 9% presently to a higher level. But in terms of the actual contribution in amount, in naira or dollar or whatever denomination, we want to see that we double that the contribution of agriculture in the Nigeria's GDP.
Well, all 18 political parties are by law on equal footing for the presidential elections taking place on the 25th of February this year. But does it bother you when you read about the polls and the rankings of the candidates from pollsters or from commentators who would seem to elevate some candidates and their political parties above the others? Are you concerned about that in any way? And if you are, assuming you are, what message are you getting out there to your supporters?
Okay, thank you. Really, because we were initially concerned when we were seeing the result, but later when we understood the game behind polls, we understand that more than 90% of the polls that you see out there are particularly sponsored by one or two of the people. Yes, that is the truth. We've had polls that we started getting message that if you need votes, you do this, you pay some money, and we are not. It's just polls today is just like rally. You buy people to come to your rally, you see the crowd. If you don't, nobody comes, and you accept your key supporters. So that is, if you want to win a poll in Nigeria, most of those polls, I don't see any. So once we've gotten that, we've not been into taking cognizance the importance of polls in Nigeria. However, we understand that the three parties, which of course have had the opportunity to be in power, for example, those are the parties we are looking at. We believe that we are looking at them, and by what we are doing, like you said when I said by God's grace, initially you said politics is not just about God, but me, I believe everything about this country has to do with God also. Yes, but that doesn't stop you from doing the work that is needed to get the results. So we are looking at what they are doing, and we are positioning ourselves in a way that we can actually outrun them in the next maybe 2 weeks election that is coming.
Well, we seem to overlabor God sometimes, because there are things we can do on our own.
Of course.
Yes, and then the ones that we cannot do, that's for me, that's my personal opinion. That's when we need to bring it. But let me, just in the few minutes that we have, I'd like to hear your opinion about restructuring. And just before I delve into that, let me also clear that I think it would be better you said you don't consider the opinion polls. Your party does not reckon with it than discrediting those polls, absolutely, because those polls do also have their own, points and credit to the sources. I don't know the sources, but we shouldn't discredit those polls in entirety. Now let me go to restructuring. Some people believe that to restructure this country, you must devolve power from the center. They believe that, a lot of power is at the center. So you must devolve to, the federating units. That's where we achieve the true federalism that we seek. But others also look at having, a new constitution via a referendum or national conference. What's your party's stance on this?
Okay, first, we believe that we must run an all-inclusive government. We must encourage or have every Nigerian feel like a Nigerian in Nigeria. Because one of the challenges that we have as Nigerians today in Nigeria is the lack of sense of inclusiveness by some regions in Nigeria. Many regions feel that they are not included. And I believe an accord administration, I know that the very first thing we are going to be doing is to call a roundtable discussion and look at how we can run this country together as one. Yes, restructuring, constitutional review are largely part of what we'll be doing to ensure that everybody feel to be part. Because you cannot, as Nigeria, be patriotic if you don't believe that you have a sense of belonging in the concept of Nigeria. So we want the patriotism level to be high. We want people from the southwest, southeast, every part of Nigeria that is agitating to come back and let us develop Nigerians together. So we are going to be looking at constitutional review, not totally jettisoning the constitution by itself. There's a lot of things that must be done, like the resource allocation, like control of resources by states, state policing and security. We'll be looking at all those things, and we are going to be tackling it with high level of wisdom.
Okay, Vice Presidential candidate Umaru, I'm wondering if you do have any, if your party does have any policy or anything in the manifesto that targets women's rights, women and women and children issues specifically. But I'm glad that your director of campaign is a woman, and at least that gives me great joy. So please, could you quickly, in less than 60 seconds,
Yes.
give me?
Actually, Accord has great respect for women as women, and what you have said is that we have the director, our director general is a female, and one of the reasons why we appointed her is because we wanted to be different from other parties and to show the high respect that we have for women. So Accord intends to implement special programs that concern women and children.
Okay, I'm sorry. Probably, if we do have time again before the elections or before the end of your campaign period, if we do, we'll probably have you come in to talk to us more about your provisions for women. But I'm afraid that's how we'll have to end the program, our conversation for today. We'd like to thank you, Christopher Imumolen, presidential candidate for the Accord Party, Professor Christopher Imumolen. Thank you very much for coming. And Balabilo Maro is vice presidential candidate of the Accord Party. Thank you also.
Our party is Accord.
Okay, let's quickly take a look. All right, Keith.
Yeah, well, that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. We thank you for being with us since Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Join us again on Monday, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning for a fresh package. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
I'm Claire Adelabu Abdurrazak. Enjoy your weekend. And also remember, the campaign against rape and rapists is still on. Be a star. Join the NTA in the campaign. From all the production crew, have a pleasant weekend.